Universalist Fellowship, and a special welcome to you if you are newly with us this morning. We are honored by your curiosity and presence. We invite you to stay with us for discussion afterwards. As you know, we share with our minister, Matt, in delivering services each Sunday, and we were honored to hear him read our welcoming words. My name is Lew Crippen, and I am your service leader today. Lew Crippen will offer the homily, and we have several other members of our congregation helping with the service, both here at the fellowship and remotely from their homes. We have some announcements, and these will be posted in Matt's daily email in case you don't get the information down. Monday, tomorrow, the Women's Discussion Group will meet at 12. If you're interested, contact Catherine Luria or Pamela Cousinel for the discussion topic in the Zoom account. Wednesday, we have our community circle. All are welcome at 11 o'clock. The link is shown and the meeting number is the same number you used for today. Thursday, we have the Women's Coffee and Chat at 12. The link is shown and the meeting number is the same number you used for today. And now we are going to light our chalice. Every Sunday, we join thousands of Unitarians and Universalist groups around the world when we light our chalice. This week's chalice lighting was written by the Reverend Lisa Dodge. Why a flaming chalice? The question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessing overflowing. A cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst. A cup of wine for celebration and dedication. The flame of truth. The fire of purification, oil for anointing, healing. Out of chaos, fear, and tyranny, thus was a symbol crafted a generation ago. So may it be for us in these days of uncertainty, sorrow, and rage, and a light to warm our souls and guide us home. And now we will sing together. And Michael will play. We kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share. Our opening words are a compilation. Donald Trump famously challenged the World Health Organization data on the virus's death rate, saying, I think the 3.4% is really a false number. Personally, I think the number is very under 1%. And we have contained this. I won't say airtight, but pretty close to airtight. And again, when you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down close to 0, that's a pretty good job we've done. Various health agencies and leading scientists in early May raised their death estimates from 60,000 to 135,000. Bringing to mind the common aphorism in statistics. As models are wrong, all models are wrong, but some are useful. Or as a leading statistician, George Box, commented, since all models are wrong, the scientist must be able to be alert to what is importantly wrong. It is inappropriate to be concerned about mice when there are tigers about. It is inappropriate to be concerned about mice when there are tigers about. He's asking us to focus on the important things. And we will now sing together our hymn number, I have to take my glasses off here. 346, thank you, Roy. Come sing a song with me. Michael will play an introduction and Linda will lead the singing.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love that grows in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song that grows in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love that grows in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love that grows in the winter time.
Thank you, Michael and Linda. Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we are a community. We belong to a community, we belong to a family, which care for each other. We do this by bringing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives. If you have a joy or sorrow to share today, you can also type it into the chat on your screen, and we'll try to read those aloud. Let us begin by recalling the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others. And Lew and I have a joy today. A couple of weeks ago, we announced that our great niece, Jody, had contracted the COVID virus, the COVID-19 virus. And I'm happy to say that she has recovered and she has the antibodies and she is donating her plasma. So that makes us very happy. Have we gotten any, Kat?
We have one joy so far from Pamela Cusino. My joy was to attend the COA service in my New York congregation this morning. Our youth is our treasure.
If you have other joys, feel free to type them into chat. And now we have a concern. We have a sorrow to share. And this is a sorrow that we all share when we think of Linda and Wayne Conklin. We share sorrow for Linda as her husband is in, I'm struggling with the word, in hospice, thank you. I knew it wasn't hostage. Wayne is in hospice. Fortunately, he is at home. Unfortunately, it looks as if it is close to the end. And they are very important to us. They were wonderful members. They are wonderful remote members. And Linda and Wayne donated our keyboard, the keyboard that Michael plays. And Wayne also would play the dulcimer. And they brought a great deal of joy to us, and it is with sorrow that we know that Wayne is slipping away. Do we have any others?
We have one from Susie Lindeman. Today, our 100,000th victim of COVID will die in the USA. Lights being extinguished too early.
Thank you. And now we light our care candle. This candle, provided by our care team, represents those sorrows that are too raw, too difficult for us to share aloud. They might be decades old, but some sorrows never go away. We will light this candle for those sorrows which remain present, but left unspoken. Today's reading comes from the Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. And I have to say that it took me a while to understand why Lew chose this reading for today's service. And then it occurred to me. Boccaccio was writing from Florence 600 years ago, before the Renaissance. He was writing 600 years ago when Florence looked like it would die as a city. It was suffering from the plague, and it looked as if there would be no more Florence. Now, I know many of you have been to Florence, and so you know that despite Boccaccio's fears and the fears of all the Florentines from 600 years ago that the city would disappear, it didn't. It came back in a different way, and it came back strongly as part of the Renaissance. And now I will read from Boccaccio's words. Almost everyone avoided the sick and everything belonging to them. By doing so, each person thought he would secure his own safety. Some thought that the moderate living would preserve them from the epidemic. They formed small communities, living entirely separate from everybody else. They shut themselves up in houses where there were no sick, eating the finest food and drinking the best wine, but very temperately, avoiding all excess, allowing no one to discuss the news or death and sickness, and passing the time in music and other light and happy pleasures. Others thought just the opposite. They thought the sure cure for the plague was to drink and be merry, to go about singing and amusing themselves, satisfying every appetite they could, laughing at what happened. They put their words into practice, spent day and night going from tavern to tavern, drinking immoderately. Or they went into other people's homes, doing only those things which pleased them. They could do this easily because many of the homes in Florence were vacant. People had run away, people had gathered in other homes, And so their homes were free for the taking. So that these hedonists became the possessors of these homes, and any stranger who went in made use of them as if he owned them. And with all this bestial behavior, they avoided the sick as much as possible. Others, caring about nothing but themselves, abandoned their own city, their own houses, their dwellings, their relatives, their property, and went abroad, as if God's wrath in punishing men's wickedness with the plague would not follow them, but strike only those who remained within the walls of the city. Or as if they thought nobody in the city would remain alive and that its last hour had come. Once other citizens avoided another. Hardly any neighbors troubled about others. Relatives never or hardly ever visited each other. Moreover, such horror was struck into the hearts of men and women by this calamity, that brother abandoned brother, and the uncle his nephew, and the sister her brother, and very often the wife her husband. What is even worse and nearly incredible is that fathers and mothers refuse to see and care for their children as if they had not been theirs. And now Lew will give the homily.
A chilling account. What is the new normal? Or more properly, what will be the new normal and how will we know when it arrives? Without claiming to be prescient, I would suggest that we will not be in a normal or stable period until after an effective vaccine has been developed and made widely available. Until then, I think that normal will be for many of us a continued application of social distancing and avoidance of public transportation, including air travel, continued use of Zoom, Google Meet, and GoToMeeting, and avoidance of group gatherings, not eating in crowded restaurants, and not meeting together in the fellowship. While all of this is new, we can all agree that this is not the new normal. I think that for many, getting back to the old normal is what is desired. That is, the old normal will be the new normal. Even after an effective vaccine has been made widely available and we are able to revert to how we had lived our lives before, many will not be in a stable period until the recession or depression is over and unemployment has subsided. And on the economic front, you never want a serious crisis to go to waste. This quote was made famous during the last economic crisis when Lehman Brothers fell in 2008. And as the case with many one-liners, this is often misinterpreted. A more expansive version of Obama's Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel's quote is, although the situation is horrific, you should not waste an opportunity to do the things you could not do before. We need to take responsibility and do what we can to solve this crisis as soon as possible. But we need not forget that opportunities arise. Not only was that a rallying cry then, it is so applicable today that Emanuel repurposed his statement again this year, as once again the left pushes for financial investment as a way out of recession or depression. To be fair, this time the center, and even the hard right, has been engaged along with the left in appropriating significant monies in an attempt to manage the financial crisis. Just to cite one example, the New York Times reported earlier this month, the leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and Republican Senator Josh Hawley, a rising conservative star, are both making the case to their party's individual leaderships that guaranteed income programs should be part of the federal relief effort. Reflecting more locally, Norman's observation is that he is no longer getting eye rolls when he talks up a guaranteed annual income. Of course, these two things are slightly different in scope, maybe even meaningfully different in scope, even if the underlying principles are close to the same. Is this then the new normal? Inter-party cooperation? An overall political swing to the left? I think not. What do we even mean when we speak of the new normal? And if we knew what we were talking about, can we have any confidence in predicting the new normal? Last week, Matt mentioned that this was not the first virulent pandemic. The Black Death, the decimation of the New World native population due to smallpox, measles, or other European diseases, and also the post-World War I flu pandemic, to cite only a few examples. No doubt each of these had far worse immediate ramifications than our current COVID-19 crisis. The Black Death mortality rate has been estimated as being between 30 to 60% of the population of Europe, killing perhaps as many as 475 million worldwide, and that just during the 14th century. It took several hundred years until the 17th century for Europe's population to recover to that of the level of 1300. As you likely know, this sudden decrease in population allowed the remaining workforce some considerable bargaining power, resulting in the standard of living being raised for serfs and peasants. Does anyone here think that the lords, ladies, serfs, and artisans thought that they were not going to return to the old normal? Or did they think that the old feudal way of life was gone and that the new normal had arrived? If so, they were all wrong, as even more change was in the wind. Why? Because not long after the Black Death of the 13th century, the 14th century saw the beginning of the Renaissance. Now, I'm not making the claim that the Black Death led directly to the Florence of the Medici, but certainly there is nothing in the Decameron that indicates any kind of normalcy was on the horizon at all. In practical terms, the Middle Ages was coming to an end and the Renaissance was the new normal. The new normal would last until the 17th century, the Enlightenment, and the beginning of the early modern period. If there is a point here, it is that a prediction of any normalcy after a pandemic is probably guesswork. It is not even clear as to when there will be enough stabilization that we might consider we are living in a normal lifestyle, doing normal things in a normal, repeatable fashion. Obviously then, the question is, when have we arrived at a normal period and what do we think it will be? Of course, a lessened continuation of how we are living our lives right now in an attempt to get back to the old normal will not be seen as normal, but rather a bridge to get from where we are to where we will be. This transition period is actually already beginning, not only in the United States and Canada, but also around the world. But there is no guarantee that there will be a return to the ways of life before the pandemic. I would suggest that the economy of the United States, that has been heavily dependent on consumerism in the service segment, will not return. There were signs of this even before the pandemic. For example, restaurants in major cities had become an increasingly difficult proposition to maintain. The need to buy new in-fashion clothes, the requirement, or perhaps the desire, to upgrade electronic and high-tech equipment on an almost annual basis, to build ever larger McMansions, and in general, to keep up with the Joneses is not likely to be sustainable. Our consumer-oriented economic model will likely change. You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. As I indicated earlier, it is almost certain that in the US, even the right will come to realize that private insurance is not adequate to meet not only emergencies, but also day-to-day medical care as well. After all, private insurance is no good if one does not have a job. You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And it is likely that some type of income redistribution will occur as well. The inequities of income and wealth have become so disparate that they can no longer be ignored. You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. My hope is that the new normal will see these kinds of changes. The virus has given us the chance to evolve into a more equitable society, especially in terms of healthcare, opportunity, and wealth equity. Even if this is the new normal, it won't happen overnight. Don't forget, the change from the late Middle Ages to the Renaissance spanned decades. No one then saw the depopulation of Europe as the harbinger of the new normal Renaissance. Put another way, I may not live long enough to see the outcome and what will become the new normal. For me, perhaps, the new normal will be change itself. Don't forget, don't let a serious crisis go to waste.
Thank you, Lew. I thought about lighting a candle of joy and sorrow for our nephew, our great nephew, Will, who graduated from high school this year, and he graduated without a prom, a wrestler's banquet, without a graduation ceremony. But before this happened, he and his parents had decided that the best course for him was to go into a trade. And the more we move along in this, the more I think they've made a very wise decision. Now it's time for our offering, and I'm not going to pass the basket. But many of you have asked how to contribute to the LCUUF. Well, we are not able to meet together. Perhaps you want to keep current on your pledge. Perhaps you like what we're doing and you want to support us. Here are several ways to donate. First, you can use PayPal. You can send money to our account at lcuufinc@gmail.com if you have a PayPal account. Second, you can do a wire transfer from your bank. You can use your bank's bill pay service. You can send money to our US bank account. Contact Susan Miller if you would like more details about this. Susan's email is ssmiller999@gmail.com. Or if you would like to give us money directly, Lorna Dean is sitting in her driveway with the car started, and she will come and collect your money, or she will be happy to have you drop it by. So there are 3 ways that you could donate to us. And if you didn't get that written down, don't worry. Matt will include this information periodically in his daily sharing. And now, Let us extinguish our chalice with these words, which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world. And Lew has some closing words, followed by our postlude.
Someday, this pandemic will end, but be skeptical as to any predictions, including mine. It is inappropriate to be concerned about mice when there are tigers abroad. You never want to let a serious crisis go to waste. Please stay around if you like for discussion right after the postlude. This week, the postlude is being repeated from last week for those of you who may not have heard Michael and Linda on the day.